All right, welcome everybody to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. Today it's just Kyle and Friend. Crystal is not with us, but I'm very happy to be talking to the hilarious comedian John Marco Ceresi. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, no, my pleasure, my pleasure. So first of all, tell everybody about yourself. I was gonna say that I think you're the first comedian we've had on the show, but then I actually decided to look it up, and we've had my brother Aaron Brown, who I absolutely love. Everybody should check out his YouTube channel if they don't have it, if they haven't yet. Um, we had on Dave Smith, the Libertarian, which let's just say that.
Sure.
And we had on, ready for this one? Russell Brand prior to him going insane.
Wow. That's quite a slate.
Yeah, totally.
I'm always curious about Russell Brand if he's making more money now or less money now that he's gone full grift. Incredible. It's incredible how people can do something they don't believe in. Because some people you go, oh, maybe they believe in this, whatever. But he's up there leading Christian prayers for Charlie Kirk and selling magnets, and I'm like, man, you're a better actor than you were in the movies. Truly.
He was. I remember. I want to say it was during the 2024 election at some point. Maybe he was literally at Mar-a-Lago with Don Jr. and Trump himself. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you go back and watch this guy's videos from like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. He's making like explicitly socialist arguments. And then as soon as he knew that all the allegations were going to drop against him, he was like, actually, I'm super Christian. I'm a right wing. I don't know what you want me to tell you guys.
Yeah. That's how it goes. That's the turn. Well, I am a stand-up comedian. And I've been at it maybe 11, 12 years. And I just travel around the world, performing. I'm currently in Kansas City, Missouri, and just talking shit, and that's my profession.
So I got a lot to ask you about being a comedian because it's something that's always sort of fascinated me. But first, let me ask you: did you hesitate to agree to come on this show because I'm like Voldemort to every single Rogansphere comedian, and like the fact that you're even doing this means you will never get a gig in Austin, Texas for the rest of your life. You do understand that, right?
It is, but it's such. Austin has such. I mean, first of all, Austin has so many different comedy pockets that I go to Austin and I never cross paths with these guys for the most part. I mean, the mothership is there. I honestly, I wanted to like go to a show to see it, to kind of like see what the vibe was, what the lineup was like. I'd heard the stories, and but there's other clubs there. When I go to Austin, I perform at Cap City Comedy Club, and it's fine. I don't know. Austin to me feels like such a liberal city in general. It is weird that that's become the home for this comedy movement that seems to be dissipating in its own way.
Totally.
So no, I didn't have any hesitation. I see your tweets, and I generally laugh, and we're it's nice to see, as someone who came up like in a time where it did feel like progressive spheres were a little bit more word policey. Not that I was like, I didn't bother me necessarily the things that they were policing, but there was a lot of like, hey, you shouldn't say that. Hey, you shouldn't talk like that. And it has been a nice shift, kind of post Charlie Kirk, of like conservatives being the ones going, hey, don't talk that way. Hey, that's inappropriate. And it's nice to feel like being inappropriate now aligns with my values as well.
Correct.
That's been a nice shift.
Yeah, and I feel like you're the exact same age as me too, and I feel like when we were growing up, it was always viewed as counterculture and edgy to be left wing. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, think about the George W. Bush era, Dick Cheney, like all the illegal wars and the torture and like everything that was edgy and funny and interesting. It was like a left wing perspective. It was like Jon Stewart, And as we got older, and that narrative sort of flipped a little bit, or that dynamic sort of flipped a little bit, and it did. I mean, the entire time I sort of felt like, hold on, but we are the edgy ones. Even when that actually flipped, I was like, no, but I've always been like this. What the fuck?
Yeah, I really do think it's partially the division between like the general politics of the entertainment world and America writ large. Yeah, I do think leftist views in America writ large are on the fringe, not the ones in power, speaking truth to power, blah blah blah. But I do think the era that we lived through, it's like, Hollywood was progressive, not leftist, but certainly like they were so you came under the illusion. Like, I think when some comedians, when they thought they were like punching, I hate the word punching up, punching down, but when they thought they were speaking truth to power, they were really like just riling the feathers of like Hollywood liberals.
Right.
But if you went to the rest of America, it was like, no, homophobia is still thriving in plenty of America. Transphobia is still all over America. And so it was that weird thing where they might be like within their progressive bubbles that they existed in show business. They were being kind of edgy and whatever. But the people they were appealing to were in a community where they were all very homophobic and transphobic and misogynistic and blah, blah, blah. So it's just kind of that breakdown of I think why those comedians came under the impression that they were kind of being edgy when they really were speaking to the alarming majority in America.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm curious your thoughts on, being an insider in the comedy world. What has happened to comedy in your view during the Rogan era? You almost gave me like a little bit of an insight there that like the Rogan era is actually its own little thing in this corner of the comedy world, and there's the rest of the comedy world that's not that. But as an outsider, when we look at it, now you talk to anybody and you bring up comedy and they'll go like, okay, Joe Rogan, Kill Tony, and then they might bring up like Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, but they're all like sort of Rogan adjacent in a sense. So what's it like as an insider? How would you describe the Rogan era of comedy, if you will?
I just think comedy has become much less of a monolith than it once was. Like I think there was a time where whatever your political views were, you all went to the Comedy Cellar, or you all were at that club, maybe not talking to each other, but it was like Rogan was this first thing where suddenly there was like an island outside of just a comedy club where you could boost your career or elevate. And ultimately, like the mothership, and again, I've never been, but it is known certainly as like more of a haven. It is like a club with a political slant. I mean, I'm at the Kansas City Improv, and if you look at the comedians coming up, you're like, man, politically we're all over the place here. The staff, you'd have to ask the staff the difference in the kind of shows that they're seeing. But if you go to the mothership, you're kind of getting a specific angle. I don't think Hari Kondabolu is going to the mothership anytime soon. And so it's like that's made for this fracturing where we are no longer in communication with each other to a degree. There's certain podcasts that are never going to have me. And there's guests that I just wouldn't necessarily have my podcast, and we're all able to have comedy careers, but we don't swim in the same rivers, So it's like I do think Rogan like blew up, and it was this thing. I had an agent who once told me, they said, look, if you want to sell tickets on the road, you either get a gigantic social media, you have a huge like TV viral moment, or you go on Rogan. Those were the three prongs of making it. I think that third prong of Rogan has split up. There's all sorts of podcasts you could do, and I know comedians who go on Rogan and it doesn't do shit for them either. So I do think like Rogan was just the beginning of the comedy world breaking apart, where we don't all know each other anymore. We're not all friends. And I think it's probably more interesting that way, to have more of a dialogue and a debate and ultimately some beefs. I think it can be good for comedy.
I wonder if it was ever really a fraternity, or if that's just like, sort of looking back through rose-colored glasses. Because yeah, it looks like the Rogan comedians in particular are very like cliquish and almost like fraternity-like, and they look down on everybody that's outside of the fraternity. But before that, I wonder if it was actually like like a brotherhood or a fraternity, because I'm not sure it is.
Sure, I mean, I think you're using the appropriate gendered club of what it was, whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, it was a degree of a fraternity. There was a lot more talking about like comedians got to stick up for each other,
Right.
and whatever. And then I think it became challenged with, with I think some progressive things challenged it. There was a huge conversation about cancel culture, whether it be like, how did comedians respond to Saturday Night Live firing Shane Gillis? And I think like, there was those that said like, yeah, this was good, this person said something offensive. And then I do think there was the more mature conversation of like, well, what does NBC fund? Like, who Saturday Night Live is the show that had Trump on the air. So when are you going to question that? You're just going to criticize the individual comedian as opposed to the institution that platforms people. So all of that kind of broke apart. I think a lot of what was understood as just like, we're all comedians, we're all just kind of speaking truth to power. We started questioning who are the ones in power, who are the idols that we love that are suddenly becoming more political. And then comedians became so influential that suddenly, they're having a president on the podcast. And all of this just, I think it changed when comedy became a bigger deal and more close to the levers of power. And now that's why we're so fractured today, which makes sense. An industry shouldn't necessarily, everyone who owns a restaurant shouldn't necessarily be in league with each other politically. So it's good. It's just a sign of the growth of art and comedy.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, because I feel like being funny, it feels to people, many people, including myself sometimes, if somebody's funny, it almost feels like, well, that's wisdom. Like you're being wise.
Yes.
The fact, but here's the thing, it's actually not. Like, because you look at somebody like Andrew Schultz, you look at somebody like Tim Dillon, and you go, I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about. You have Tim Dillon, who did like 78 different episodes on the Epstein files, but like never connected the dots that Donald Trump is all over the fucking Epstein files.
Sure.
You have Andrew Schultz, who played patty cakes with Trump when he came on the podcast, and it's like, maybe you guys shouldn't have this much cultural sway, and you should. The other thing is, when they start to take themselves too seriously, I forget who made the point. Oh, I think it was Stavros said, the second you're a comedian and you start to take yourself too seriously, it's over. And I just see a lot of that coming from them, from the Rogansphere.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it can be on the liberal side too. I do think I look back, because I always want to challenge like my own views on it, and also question as I like kind of flirt with politics or like get to know them. It's like it is a degree where it's like, well, what is it that you're trying to do? It's like if you're going, I'm an entertainer first. And
right.
Then you bring on a politician, you're helping them be part of entertainment. If you want to be like a journalist leading comedian, that's fine too, but you then are going to be held to more standards than just, are you funny? And I think that's where it's become kind of obnoxious, where it's like this, if they have the politician on, it's like, hey, I'm just curious. I'm interested. I want to know about the world. But then if you challenge them like, hey, well, you kind of just ruffled their hair or made them look good, or asked them like if Barron Trump was getting pussy at NYU, that you go, hey, I'm just a comedian. And so it's that kind of flip-flopping thing where I go, if you want to engage in serious things, you're going to be held by serious standards. If you want to just be funny, that's listen, Tim Dillon has some hilarious things, and I do think like everyone falls prey to this thing where if they disagree with the politics of art, or maybe they disagree with the politics of the artist, they want to say like they also make bad art, or the art was bad, or it wasn't interesting. And I really think it's worth fighting that, because then you look like a liar. If you felt betrayed, or you said Louis C.K. did this and this is bad, but then you go, also he was never even that funny. It's like,
yeah, that's not true. Not about Louis.
Yeah, and people do that, and then suddenly you're existing in this world where you're elevating bad art from people that you like or admire, and you're condemning good art from people you despise. And then I think you develop people who go crazy in private and they go, I disagree with this, or this is a lie. And so I do think it's important to be like to acknowledge when something's funny, even if you don't like the person, or at least not to lie. To not lie about it, because you're not a bad person if you enjoy, you know, if a pedophile makes a sandwich and the sandwich is good, I don't have to pretend that it's a bad tasting sandwich just because the person is bad. And I do think it's important to like be honest, because when you're honest about things, it allows more clarity in the conversations that you're having.
So here's the thing, though, and I think this is where those people fucked up, is they lead with the politics first, and then the funny comes second, if at all. And that's where they fucked up, is that, like, if you are just leading with the entertainment value, you're leading with, like, the art itself, and then you happen to be political, and it happens to lean conservative, that's totally fine. If I could give you examples of that, George Carlin, who everybody, you know, he's universally viewed as one of the greats. He had, like, everybody thinks of him as this, like, hardcore left-winger, and in some ways he was. But he also had this, like, anti-environmentalist bit that he did, where he, like, ruthlessly shit all over environmentalists. And it still somehow worked, because you got the sense that, even though he was very political, he wasn't leading with politics first. I guess, in other words, if you're a comedian, you can't be me. Like, I'm a political commentator, I'm a political pundit, I am about the politics first and foremost, and if I happen to be funny, that comes secondary, but it's not like I have to be funny. But I think a lot of those guys in that sphere, they unfortunately started thinking, like Andrew Schultz, wasn't he on like the cover, not the cover, but like he was in New York Magazine or something like that, and they had him as like the
New York
big
Times
political thing?
It was the New York Times. It's
Times. Like, what is that? You can't. Taking himself too seriously, leading with the politics first, and as somebody who does this stuff for a living, I can safely say he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. So that's a problem, right? So, but I feel like you do a great job, and there are others who do a great job as well, of, yeah, your act is political, but it doesn't feel like that's the point of what you're doing. The point is to make people laugh. The point is to be entertaining, and you just happen to make funny jokes that lean left in the process.
Yeah, I like to believe that, like, my views usually come through like in the setup, and the punchline itself can be I want it to be surprising, so I don't need the punchline to follow in line with my views. That's where I can be absurd. That's where I can say an exaggerated thing, and I just believe that, like, the things I talk about will reveal who I am as a human being. But I think, like, it really is this thing where it's like, yeah, you can go on stage, and I will give a lot of grace if someone's on stage telling jokes. That doesn't mean anything on stage, you know, it's not above critique. But I go, okay, this is the funny comedy space. But when you engage more seriously with politicians, especially right, before an election, I go, well, the bar is different now. Because I don't care that you invited Kamala. You know, all I care about is whoever is on there now. You've entered a thing where you're dealing with serious shit, and lo and behold, what happened is you know, Trump lied on the podcast about certain things. Just they didn't talk about certain things, and now all of a sudden, when he does the harmful thing, when ICE is, you know, violently ripping apart families, now you go, Trump didn't do what he told me, and I go, we knew this from the beginning. You just wanted. I remember I saw a very famous comedian once at a comedy club, and they were telling a bit about how, given their status in the world, they had gotten the COVID vaccine early. And the bit was them trying to, like, wrestle or work out, you know, this is the way the world works. I'm rich and I get the vaccine before you regular people in the audience. And I remember watching it and going, like, okay, I guess I appreciate the honesty. I'm not laughing, though, because there's nothing funny about that. That's fucked
right
up. If the audience ran up on stage and hit you, I'd go, fair, because you can talk about, you can say, yeah, I got this possibly life-saving thing before you did. Your relatives could have died and I wouldn't have. But I go, why would I laugh at that? What's funny about that? That's not comedy. So, and that's how I feel about certain things that comedians do, whether they're talking about their real life or whether bringing on a politician. I go, okay, but the thing you're discussing isn't funny, so don't be surprised if I boo or if I go on a podcast and go, fuck that guy, because that's fucked. And it was just really interesting trying to watch this comedian find comedy when the thesis was, I would have survived and you would have died. If there was some other plague, if the world was exploding, I'd go to Mars on the colony and you would die in flames. And you want me to laugh? You want me to do the 2-drink minimum while I hear you tell me that shit? That's a version of how I feel when comedians engage with politics, where I go, you're not doing comedy. You're going to be held to a different standard. If you want to claim, like, yeah, I guess I am a journalist, then I'm gonna hold you to journalistic standards, and that's important.
Yeah, like, if you want to get political and you want to interview literal politicians who are some of the most powerful people in the world, I mean, my wife Crystal on Breaking Point, she's a great example of this. She has done interviews where she knew going into it, this is going to be super uncomfortable for me. It's going to be super uncomfortable for them. It's probably going to go viral. Maybe people love me or hate me in the moment because of how aggressive I am. But you have to do it because that's what you're signing up for. So I think of, like, with RFK, for example, this was back when he was the internet's darling for a little bit, where, like, he could do no wrong when he first, like, came out. She grilled him and held his feet to the fire there, and she took a lot of fucking incoming for it. But, like, that's what you signed up for if you're going to do political media and you're going to interview politicians. And what a lot of these comedians did is they accepted none of the responsibility, and they let these people lie. And then, like you said, when Trump started doing horrible things, they go, ugh, can you believe this? It's like, you had him sitting there. You could have asked him some of these things.
Yeah, and it's like that's – I think what some of them believe is that, like, okay, well, I have the power. I can talk to them. We'll have an honest conversation. And then if they get in the seat of power, like Trump, then, hey, better not mess with me. I'll criticize you. And it's like, no, your power has already dissipated. Your power as an entertainer – or as a platform really elevates during an election cycle. And there's this illusion that, wow, look how powerful I am. The president wants to come on my show. That somehow after they have the power, you could influence them or take them down a peg. Comedians, in my mind, are like chess pieces in the sense that you can make certain moves. That doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. You know, when someone gets in power, you're the only thing you can do is elevate and expose this person to new eyeballs and make new fans. And that might be frustrating. It might be frustrating to go, wow, are you saying I can only help Trump but not take him down a peg? It's like, well, yeah, that's just how it works in an election cycle. And so it doesn't impress me after the fact that you go, yeah, Trump didn't talk about Epstein very much. It's like, no, you had him there. You had him there, and you knew about the Epstein, and you should be mocked for how you failed. A politician should be nervous to be around a comedian.
Totally.
In general, I think anyone in a position of power should feel a little bit wary to get involved with the comedian. I still think Michelle Wolf at the White House Correspondents' Dinner is like one of the biggest, like, wow, you went in a room with a lot of powerful people and you did such a good job comedically that they kind of canceled comedy after that for that event. To me, that's worthy of praise.
That's absolutely amazing. Since you brought up Michelle Wolf, I'm curious to ask you, who are your comedy heroes, if you have any? And this is extra interesting to me because, like I said, we're the exact same age, so I'm curious who you gravitated to.